Are you making the most out of the super fans in your business? Hey, everybody, Katie Lance here, and I'm so excited to showcase our latest podcast episode. I had the pleasure of interviewing Brittany Hodak. Brittany is an award-winning entrepreneur, keynote speaker, author, customer service experience expert, and she's worked with some of the biggest brands like Disney, Katy Perry, Dolly Parton, and so many amazing industries. And our conversation today, we really focused on the real estate industry and how real estate agents and brokers can maximize her supermodel, how agents can maximize really exceeding expectations with their clients, social media tips. It was an amazing conversation. I can't wait for you to take a listen. So thank you so much, Brittany, for being with us. And here we go on with the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Katie Lance podcast. I'm so excited. We have a very special guest in the house today. I am thrilled to be chatting with Brittany Hodak, who is the author of this amazing book. I was just telling Brittany that I not only read the book, it's called Creating Superfans, How to Turn Your Customers into Lifelong Advocates. Not only did I read the book, I also listened to the audiobook. That's how good it is. And so we're going to have a great conversation with Brittany. So welcome, Brittany. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Katie. I am so happy to be here. It is great to see you again.
I know it's super fun to have you back. Those of you who are listening, who are part of our Get Social Smart Academy, you've seen Brittany. We've had Brittany as a special guest inside of our academy, inside of our private academy group several times. And she's always a dynamic speaker. She always brings so much value. So I was like, we got to have you back for our podcast so everyone can hear your greatness. So excited to chat with you about Superfans and the book and just all the goodness that you're here to share today. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's dig right into it. This book is all about superfans. And I know for a lot of folks, when you think of superfans, you think of like sort of like the crazed fans, right? With like, at a concert or at a, sporting event or something like that. But I know in the context of business, obviously superfans take on a whole nother meaning. So can you give us your definition of superfans and why are they so important in the world of business, in the world of real estate, and in the world that you speak of?
I would love to. So a superfan is a customer or stakeholder who has such a great experience working with you that they become an enthusiastic advocate. They're going to come back and they're going to tell their friends. And the reason that this is important, if that's not obvious from the definition, is because superfan customers create more customers. And when you have this army of loyal advocates who's out there telling everyone that if they are even thinking about buying or selling a home, they need to work with you. It doesn't matter if their college roommate is in real estate. It doesn't matter if their wife's cousin has her license. This is too big of a deal to work with anyone other than the absolute best. So you want them to be enthusiastically recommending you, making those warm introductions and those referrals on your behalf.
I love that. And I love how you talk about how superfans are customers who create more customers, right? It seems like such a simple philosophy, but so important. And I know in the book, you talk a lot about your model called the Supermodel. Can you tell us more about what that's all about?
Absolutely. So the Supermodel is a framework that I put together to help overpower what I think is the number one threat facing just about every business, especially real estate. And that threat is something that I think is not on a lot of people's radar. In fact, I talk to a lot of real estate professionals all this time, and they're like, if I could just get more awareness, like I've got an awareness problem. I need to run more ads. I need to sponsor more things. I need to, be out there more. And when I dig in, it's very often not an awareness problem at all. Plenty of people know you're in real estate. It's an apathy problem. They don't care. They don't care enough to tell their friends. They don't care enough to make those introductions. They don't care enough to work with you at the exclusion of their other 57 connections online who also are doing real estate, right? So it's not an awareness problem. It's an apathy problem. And overpowering apathy is the most important thing that anyone who has a business should focus on. Because if you can't overpower apathy, you're never going to be a category leader. And you're especially never going to be a category of one. You're just a commodity provider. You're just somebody that is going to get some of the deals, right? If you happen to be the first to respond, or, the closest, or the first that they think of, or the least expensive, but you don't want to compete on those commodity things. You want to be their go-to. You want to transform this idea of, I do the same thing a bunch of other people do. So if you can do that, if you can position yourself in a way that's powerful enough to break through that apathy, to position yourself as this category of one, you're setting yourself up to be able to create those super fans. And I know you asked me about the supermodel, and we can talk about it, but I just wanted to mention that because I think, especially for somebody who's maybe never thought about the role that they have to be not just to help people buy and sell homes, but to create super fan customers who then want to work with them forever and tell all of their friends. I wanted to just sort of position that before we go into the supermodel.
I love that. Yeah, I think that it's sometimes challenging to stand out in a sea of sameness. This is something I teach on. I've said many times for anyone watching and listening to the podcast, I probably say it almost every episode. There's kind of a sea of sameness in real estate marketing. And I think, like you said, this idea of breaking through the apathy and really taking things to the next level, creating those super fans, it feels like it's such a win-win all the way around. Real estate is such a feast or famine business in a lot of ways. There's a kind of a roller coaster that happens, with agents and getting new listings, and working with a bunch of people and then not, and then working with a bunch of people and then not. And so I would imagine what you're talking about really kind of evens that out. In a lot of ways, you're kind of consistently always bring people who are attracted to you, who heard about you from their friends, their family, their colleagues, things like that.
It does. And, it's one of those things that it absolutely evens things out at first, because you don't have, those valleys, but then it also builds over time. Think of it like compounding interest, right? Like, it's important to make the investments now, not just because it's important now. It absolutely is important now, but by doing it now, you're reaping exponentially more benefits in the future. And customer experience is like the closest thing to compounding interest that exists for people, right? Setting yourself apart, creating these amazing experiences. And it took me a while to figure this out when I launched my first business. I've never been a licensed realtor, but I have worked with many real estate professionals, and I have been an entrepreneur for almost 15 years. And I used to be in that roller coaster cycle all the time, because it would be like, project. I'm so busy. I'm working in my business. And then things would settle down, and I would be like, oh man, I've got to work on the business. I've got to prospect. I've got to sell. I've got to get out there. I've got to do these things. And so then right about when I would start to get really worried, because I was like, oh, I got to make payroll, a bunch of stuff would come in. And then I wouldn't be prospecting anymore because I would be so busy working on all of this projects. So I'm very familiar with that roller coaster. I'm very familiar with that cycle. And I think one of the things that's really important for anybody working in real estate to think about is, if you're thinking about your role with your customers as starting the first phone call you have with them and ending on closing day, or a couple of days after closing day or move-in day, you are leaving so many opportunities on the table, because that's just a very small part of your customer's journey. For them, this home ownership journey or moving journey or selling their home journey starts way before they talk to you, and it continues on way past move-in day. So think about how you can continue to show up for them, be a trusted partner, walk alongside them before, during, and after the transaction. And that will also help like even out that roller coaster almost immediately.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's not just, that beginning point and that end point. It's, all the million points before, during, and after.
Yeah. And they're so important. I mean, because the before, that's when somebody is deciding if they want to work with you or not. That's when they're trying to decide if they're going to call you, or if they're going to be like, there's like probably going to be 74 more responses if I post online, hey, does somebody know a realtor? I'll just wait and see who the next person is. So you lose a lot of prospects before you even know who they are. I mean, I've seen statistics that say as much as 70% of the customer journey happens before you even know who that customer is. So that's why the supermodel, which we'll talk about, is so critical to setting yourself apart before you've even spoken with those prospects, so that they know they're not looking for someone who does what you do. They're looking for you because you're the best in the world.
I love that. So that's a great segue to talk about the supermodel. So maybe you can kind of explain that for people who aren't familiar with that and how that ties into everything you're talking about with creating super fans and just our conversation here today.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to create a framework that would be easy to remember, easy to implement, easy to iterate on and change, track over time. And so I really started thinking about what are the things that matter in an experience economy. We know people don't buy products and services anymore. They buy the experience that they are wrapped in. So how can we tell that story? How can we make sure we're doing all of the right things? So the supermodel is a 5-part framework that is, as I said, simple to remember, simple to execute. And if you execute upon it, if you follow this supermodel, I promise you will create super fans. It is impossible to follow this model and not create super fans. So super is an acronym, and I'll go through it quickly. And then Katie, if you want, we can, dive a little bit deeper into each of the pillars. But the framework is this: start with your story, understand your customer story, personalize, exceed expectations, and repeat.
Simple, right?
It's simple. Like, because all the time people are like, it's like people who are like, okay, I've got to lose weight. I'm going to, and then they have like a 9,000 step plan and they get so overwhelmed that they're like, oh, I better not do anything. And it's like, no, do anything. Like, walk to, like this week, I'm like, you know what? I got to stop drinking sugary drinks. Like, I don't know why, it's my Achilles heel, but it is. Just pick any one thing, make it simple. And so this is designed to be simple because I want you to remember. I don't want it to be overwhelming. And all of these pillars build on the one that comes before. So you can think of them like little nesting dolls. You're going to start with S, and then as you progress to U, then P, then E, then R. By the time you get to R, you are going to be a rock star. You are already going to have some of those super fan customers.
And so is your thought to take that acronym and then integrate it with everything with your business, or is it with your marketing or your branding or your social media? Like, how do you think about actually like taking that and then like integrating it with your day-to-day as you're out and about, you're doing your business? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I know this won't surprise you since you've read and listened to the book. One of the things that I say often in the book is everything is experience.
Yeah.
Customer experience is everything, meaning it's the number one factor that separates you from all of your competitors, current and future. But everything is experience, every phone call, every voicemail, every social post. And because I know that people listening to this podcast have an outsized interest in their social media, we can kind of take the supermodel and look at it through the lens of social media and how you apply it to connect your story more quickly with other stories. But the reality is the same thing that work online, work offline. We're talking about creating a feeling, creating a relationship with your customers and meeting them where they're at, whether that's on their phones while they're scrolling or in person.
Yeah, I love that. Everything is experience. You're absolutely right. And I know we all experience that from just our day to day, from vacations we take or the coffee shop we visit, or folks that come into our home to do a service, whatever that might be. That experience is absolutely everything, and so important, especially for anyone in real estate or entrepreneurs who are listening to this, to really take a step back. And I think that's in a lot of ways where they have such a huge advantage compared to maybe a big corporation that takes a monumental effort to shift, right? To make those shifts and changes. Whereas if you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, a real estate agent, you can make those shifts and changes like immediately, like on your next call. right? Which
Oh,
is awesome.
yeah. And that's such a blessing. So in addition to writing a book called Creating Superfans, I host a podcast called Creating Superfans. And one of my most recent episodes is with a guy named Ron Holt, who is the founder of a moving company called Pink Zebra Moving. But before that, he had launched a company called Two Maids and a Mop that he grew to a very successful franchise. I think he said it was like $45 million a year in revenue that they were doing. They had franchisees all over the country, and he got really obsessed with customer experience, and he wanted to turn the company into a more experiential company, to really lead with some of those more tangible differentiations. Like, this is what it feels like to work with us. This is what we're doing. And he said he found that it was so hard to turn the tides of the ship because he had all of these franchisees who were like, but it's already working. I'm already making money. And he was like, right, but it will work better and you will make more money. And he faced so much resistance that he actually sold that business and launched a new franchise. He's now in the moving industry, and he's got franchisees that he's recruiting all over the country for this experiential moving company called Pink Zebra. And he was like, I just thought that that would be easier, rather than trying to get thousands and thousands of employees across hundreds of franchisees in alignment. I'm going to just exit that business and start an entirely new one. So yes, the good news is, if you are in real estate, whether you're a solo agent or you've got a small team or you're a branch manager of a small team, you can implement the things that we're going to talk about over the next little while much more quickly than your competitors, which gives you a huge advantage.
Well, we will definitely link to your podcast below, as well as a link, of course, to your awesome book. But I now I got to listen to that episode because that sounds fabulous.
Yeah, I was like, and it was, I don't even know what we were talking about when he brought that up, but he was like, yeah, it's one of those things that I was like, I believe in this so wholeheartedly. And this is such a big deal to me that I'm going to just start over and like build this new thing rather than trying to change the minds of thousands of people. So he was like, I'm going to go, I'm taking my toys. I'm going to go play in a different sandbox.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I've taken us very far away from where we are supposed to be. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into that first pillar of the supermodel, which is S, start with your story. And when I say start with your story, I don't mean lead with your story. I don't mean that you should be out there, excuse me. I don't mean you should be out there like rolling down your window at red light saying like, hey, I'm in real estate. Let me tell you about this house over here. Are you looking for a house? What I mean is that everything has to originate from your story. Why are you doing this? Like, you could be doing anything. Why are you in real estate? What do you love about it? Why are you so passionate? And why are you the best one in the world to help your customers? That's what you've got to help them understand. And your origin story, how you got to where you're at, is a really powerful way to do it, because we understand stories, we react to them. Our brains are hardwired to make decisions based on things that are presented to us in story form. So when I say start with your story, I mean, you've got to have absolute clarity on your superpower as a realtor. What are you the best in the world at? And that can be different from everybody else. It should be different from everybody else. Once you get clear on what your superpower is, what you're the best in the world at, whether it's something about your background, something about your process, something about the way you engage with your customers, you've got to ask yourself, is that story coming through on social media? Does your bio on Instagram sound like every other realtor's? When somebody goes to your feed, are they going to see stuff that looks like every other realtor's? Or are they in alignment with your unique story, that superpower, that origin that makes you different and unique from everybody else on the planet, and the very best person to super serve those clients who are right for you?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, it ties back into real estate really easily, because I think the word story gets tossed around quite a bit, right? And it's not, like you said, hey, I'm number one. Hey, call me today. I'm a realtor. But just thinking about what your superpower is. And you don't have, not everything can be your superpower. And that's okay. We don't have to be all things to all people. But there's certainly a couple things that, when you think about why you love what you do and why you're good at what you do, that are going to stand out. And so doing that legwork to think about that, that's awesome. I love that advice.
And as you said, not only should you not try to be the best at everything, because A, it's impossible, right? B, it's exhausting, and C, it's confusing to people. And they start to think like, oh, jack of all trades, master of none. So in reality, instead of trying to like attract everyone and resonate with no one, by getting super clear on your superpower and saying, I am so great at super serving this particular client or somebody with this particular need, it helps you attract more of those type people, which is a nice segue into the second pillar of the supermodel, you, which is understand your customer story. And I said before, superfans are created sort of where those two worlds collide, where they overlap, where the thing that you do becomes hyper relevant to the person who you can help serve. So the second pillar is all about understanding your customer story.
Hmm. And what are some ways that someone can understand their customer story better? Should they, I mean, is it from their experience? Is it from like literally reaching out and emailing and asking? Is it through social media? I'm sure there's some people listening going, okay, well, how do I understand my customer story? Everyone's different.
Yes, understanding that everyone's different is a really great first step. And there's a quote I really love from Teddy Roosevelt that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And oftentimes, especially in real estate, I think, and especially on social media, we're so like trained to lead with authority. Like we want to show people how much we know. We want to tell them all about something we want to tell rather than to listen and receive. So before you show up with that authority, make sure you have the empathy, make sure you're actively listening, you're asking questions. One of the things I talk about in my book, and Katie, you may remember this, I asked the question of like, do you remember the first time as a kid you saw your teacher outside of school? Because I remember that moment and it like
Shocking.
broke my brain.
Right.
Do you remember the first time it happened to you?
I do. It was like, wait a minute. And it still happens. I'll run into, one of our kids' teachers and it's like, wait a minute. It's just, it just breaks your brain. It doesn't, it's like a missing puzzle piece or something. It doesn't fit together.
Yeah. And the reason is because you've not thought of that person outside of the context in which your relationship with them exists. Right. And I think that's a wonderful metaphor for people who are sort of asking just surface questions and like, okay, I'm going to understand you just enough to where I can do the bare minimum to help sell you this home. And to really understand your customers. What are they struggling with? What's the transformation that they're looking for? What do they really need for this home? Because they're not buying a home, they're buying the home, right? The home for their family, the most important family on the planet to them. And they want somebody who understands that, who recognizes that you're not just another client. You're not just another home I'm trying to sell or help someone buy this month. Like this is the most important home. So really understanding your customer story so that you can show them that you are showing up for them and doing all of the right things to help them on this very important mission.
And that leads to P, right? To personalize.
Yes, that leads to P, personalize, which in the book I talk about something that I think I've spoken about to your community before, which is this idea of the platinum rule, which was sort of formulated and made popular by an author named Dr. Tony Alessandra. And the platinum rule says, don't treat others the way you would want to be treated. That's the golden rule. Treat them the way they want to be treated, because not everyone wants to be treated the same way as you. We all have different beliefs and backgrounds and preferences and levels of understanding about complex things like real estate transactions. Some of your customers probably only want you to text them. Others want you to call. There are things that you can do to meet your customer where they're at, showcasing the fact that not only did you listen to them, not only do you understand their story, but you care about it. You're customizing things to make them say, wow, you are so easy to work with. This is such a great experience. And I know this is something that I think a lot of realtors shine at naturally. Like I think a lot of people who get into real estate are people. They love to go out of their way. They love to be accommodating. They love to find ways to show that they're paying attention and have that little extra element of surprise and delight for their clients. And so in the book, I talk about a lot of ways to do that, both online and off.
That's fantastic. Okay, so we hit the S, we hit the U, the P. What about the last two? The E and R.
Yeah, up next is E, and E stands for exceed expectations. And this is probably my favorite part about the book because I am an experience junkie and an experience nerd. I love talking about what I call intentional experience design, which is really just what does it feel like to work with you? Like when your client tells their friend what it was like for you to buy or sell their house, what are they saying? Like, what do they remember? What are they taking away? So in the E section of the book, I talk about how to intentionally architect that experience, like put that blueprint together for before, during, and after the transaction so that you know people are going to have a predictably amazing experience. It doesn't matter what month they're working with you or what time of month or who on your team they're engaging with. For those of you with teams, they're going to have a remarkable experience, not by default, but by design, because you have made sure that that is going to be the case. So that's the E. And then last but not least is R. One of the quotes that I love the most that's in the book is by Elizabeth Arden. And she said, repetition makes reputation and reputation makes customers. And I feel like this is so important for realtors because our reputations are everything, right? So in the repeat pillar of the Supermodel in the book, I talk about the systems and processes, things like automating, some of the things that you can automate using technology to help with things that you don't love to do yourself, making sure you're utilizing your CRM in a really smart way so that you can free up more of your time to focus on things that can't yet be automated so that you have more time to spend on things that like Chat GPT can't do for you or the reminder function of your CRM can't do for you.
Yeah, you're so spot on that when you create that repeatable routine, it's like anything else, like brushing your teeth, right? It just becomes a routine in your business versus just this one-off thing that happens once in a blue moon. So I love that. And I like I said, to everyone listening, I can't recommend Brittany's book enough. Like, we barely just scratched the surface. There's so much good stuff that's in here. So we will definitely drop a link below so you can check that out. And of course, her podcast. And as we get to the end, I know we could probably spend another like 2 hours chatting, Brittany, but as we get
we will just off camera, like
exactly,
you and I are going to be talking forever.
I know. As we get to the end, what would be, if you could give one piece of advice to our listeners? You know that a lot of folks are in real estate. We have a lot of entrepreneurs who are listening. Any one big piece of advice for anybody listening who is ready to kind of take what you're talking about and implement it into their business?
I would say really get clarity on the question, what makes you better than every single competitor? Because if you don't know the answer, your prospects don't have a prayer at figuring it out. And one way that you can do it is to think about the things that you love. What lights you up? What are the parts of your job that you just adore doing? You can have interviews with your customers to ask them what they've loved about working with you. Get clear on your superpower, because if you don't figure that out, you're always going to find yourself competing with a bunch of other people in the middle. Like, you don't want to be a part of that sea of sameness. You want to be able to plant your flag and say, this is my uniqueness. If you want to work with the person who's the absolute best at this, then you need to work with me.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today, Brittany. This has been so much fun. I have loved chatting with you.
Well, I've loved being here. Thank you again for having me, and thank you for listening.
Absolutely. And if people want to get in touch with you, of course, like I said, we're going to link the book and link your podcast. Is there anywhere else that you'd like to direct people if they would like to connect with you on social media or any other way? Let us know.
Absolutely. I am at Brittany Hodak on all of the socials, and you can find me at brittanyhodak.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here today. And thank you to all of our listeners. If you enjoyed this podcast, if you're watching over on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and the bell button and the like button and leave us a comment. Let us know what you enjoyed. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast player, we would love if you give us a 5-star review. Reviews really do help. We do appreciate it. And if anything, share this out. Tag me, tag Brittany. Let us know that you listened. We would absolutely love to connect with you over on the socials. Thanks again, Brittany, for being with us today. Thanks again to all of our listeners, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.